And I'm here with Robin Black. Lots of spillover from this weekend. There were lots of different storylines to discuss. I know some fight fans, they hate that word, but it's something that really makes MMA so unique when you have all these interesting moving parts. And maybe the biggest controversy coming out of this weekend, Robin, involved the fight involving Yoel Romero and Tim Kennedy. They got fight of the night. And the controversy here, really, you can break it down in many different facets. My first question to you is, do you make the rematch coming out of this weekend?
I think so. I think there's so many fights in the world right now, all over the world, and many of them don't have sort of a why do I care reason. Now, you should care about this fight because the first one was amazing, and they're two world-class athletes, but there's also now some controversy. And when you got something to talk about, and
there's a bigger reason to see it than the first fight.
Yeah, absolutely. People are debating it. Was that fair? What happened? What was up with that stool? All that stuff. So you make it.
What did you think? Because you kind of went down a rabbit hole here involving Yoel Romero and Tim Kennedy. We saw, obviously, the stool that was very much focused upon, but then in light of that, the next day, a lot of people looking at the glove grab by Tim Kennedy. And was that intentional? Was it not? What did that lead to? What not? Kind of all these different angles. And my end conclusion here is that I really thought Yoel Romero, when that 1 minute was up in between rounds, that dude was not ready to come back and fight. I think the rematch is the perfect way to go, and so many times the UFC avoids that, but there's so many reasons to do this, and so many fight night cards where give us a main event where there is a reason for this fight.
Yeah, I agree. You gotta redo it. I wanna see it again, even just for the beauty of the fight, how back and forth it was. If you don't watch a lot of fights, but you watch that one, you're screaming and that guy's knocking that guy out, he's almost falling down and something's going on over there. Like people, it was an exciting pendulum of a fight. But let's look at it this way. In every fight, at any moment, there was a moment in time and you were fighting in that moment. That's the reality. And the reality of the end of that fight was Yoel Romero knocked out Tim Kennedy. In the seconds before that, they were fighting in a moment where the two men were fighting. In the seconds before that, they touched gloves in the third round and fought that. If we go back, Tim Kennedy is like, yeah, but that's stool. So let's go back. He was on a stool for too long. Yeah, he was probably out. He was probably out. His body language said he was out. Big John McCarthy had the opportunity to wave that off. He chose not to wave that off, so the fight continued and the knockout happened. But if we go to that moment, why don't we go back to the moment before that? Tim Kennedy illegally grabbed the glove of Romero and threw punches. Those punches resulted in him being rocked. Him being rocked resulted in him being too long on the stool. Him being too long on the stool resulted in Big John McCarthy letting it go. Big John McCarthy letting it go resulted in a KO, which resulted in debate. If he never grabs that glove, there is no debate. What am I saying? A whole bunch of nonsense, because none of it matters, because one guy knocked the other guy out.
Rematch, that's what people understand. Kat Zingano also making her return against Amanda Nunes, gets the win, stopping her in the third round. How did you think Zingano looked? It was definitely, I thought, lost that first round, took a lot of damage, but then came back in the second and third.
She looked emotional and crazy, I thought, in the first minute, and that is totally understandable. The year that she's had, like what she's been through as a human being. But she came roaring out there, and she went for a throw that didn't work. She came out with her arms out, barely in a fighting stance. She was ravenous. She wanted that fight. And that type of emotion is very compelling. It made her lose the first, but man, did she dig deep. She seemed very scary, very, very emotionally driven, an excellent fighter. Those two throws were fantastic, and she earned that one, and it was a very compelling fight.
It's amazing that we have talked about all these fights. This is our second day discussing UFC 178. We have not discussed the main event as of yet. Demetrius Johnson doing what I think everyone expected him to do, making, rather easy work of Chris Cariaso. And I feel for Demetrius Johnson because I feel this is as an elite fighter as you are going to see, but unfortunately you don't have that opponent that is necessarily really engaging your audience and that people are really anticipating it. I mean, this was a far cry from the most interesting fight going into this card and coming out of it.
Yeah, I don't think they need to promote these fights as, oh man, this young kid could beat him. No knocking at Chris Cariaso. He's the top 2% of fighters on the planet. That's all these fighters are amazing athletes. But Demetrius Johnson is a very, very special, unique, super talent. So we don't have to tell our audience this is a close fight. We tell our audience, look at this super talent. Look what he does. Let's go out and see what he can do. And Demetrius Johnson doesn't have to do anything other than what he's doing. Perform, be the greatest fighter in the world, be as good as you can. Don't try to fake selling fights. He's not good at it. Be a great fighter. A great opponent will come along in 6 months or a year or whatever. The UFC's job is to sell you. Just be the greatest fighter in the world, and the rest will take care of itself. And that seems to be the route he's going.
Speaking of kind of being overlooked, you go back to last Friday, which feels like an eternity ago. Brandon Halsey submitting Alexander Shlemenko. Shlemenko's second straight loss. First at middleweight since the Hector Lombard fight. So we have a new Bellator middleweight champion, but really just shows you that when there is a big UFC card, that Bellator show, I don't care what happens on the Friday night, it's forgotten by Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's Tuesday. Are people even still interested in talking about Kat Zingano today? I don't know the answer to that. I'm interested. We're having fun. We know we have a hardcore audience that will watch it and support. They have an interest in it, but is the world interested in it? Never mind going back to Bellator from Friday night. Also, the world is full of entertainment. There's no shortage of websites and YouTube channels and clips and pieces and stuff. There's more of it than more of it, breakdowns, more of it than ever in human history. So it's going to be very hard to break through. Yeah, you know, I don't know what you're going to do.
Well, you simply look forward, and we got 2 UFC cards coming up Saturday involving overlap of fights. That's a first.
That's crazy.
For Robin Black, I'm John Pollock. More Fight News Now Extras coming your way.